All right. Kevin and Jamie of Believe Crew, thanks for hopping on the Witness Business podcast today. How we doing?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. One thing we like to start off the show with to kind of get the juices flowing is this question. What would you say is the worst job you've ever had? You can both go separately if one of you has like a better answer than the other, however you want to approach that.
Jamie looked really eager. She just had one immediately come to mind.
No, this is such a fun question because I think Kevin and I have both, one of the things we have in common is that we've just always loved working. And I was actually just joking with one of my clients recently because we're moving from Mexico to Denver. We moved to Mexico 18 months ago. And now the next, we're becoming this nomadic family with our 6 kids. And now this next move puts us in Denver, which is back in the States. And so I was thinking, I could actually apply for a job again in addition to being entrepreneurs. Like there's just something about we're creating life and I just like to create and do something together with people instead of going out to eat. So, or like bowling or something. I'd rather do a project. So I'm curious to see what Kevin says for his worst job.
I mean, she's got one that she's not saying. She used to encode checks in the bank in the basement of the bank, and so I would say that's probably. But she loved that job,
Mm.
right? Like it's not a good like. It's like she could just like fly with her fingers and think, right? So my, I don't know. I love work too.
This is
It's
what I'm
hard for
saying. To
me.
me, it'd be easy
Yeah,
because you were a corn detasseler, and I think that sounds miserable. And you worked with sheep, and I think that sounds miserable. Like they sound miserable to me. Newspapers, but you've never complained about them.
It sounds like we're going to just change this question. We're like, hey, describe us to your spouse's worst job.
Yeah, what's your
yeah,
least favorite
exactly.
job for your spouse?
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say detasseling. I mean, it is the worst, and it's also the most fun because it was with like 100 kids, and I made like $3,500 or something in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So it's as a high school kid. So
Yeah.
um, it's hard to beat that. I mean, it was, and you're also like, it's totally a job of mud and sunburn and corn rash and right, like it is a bad job, but it was a lot of fun, and I like the competition as well.
I'm sorry, just real quick for myself and maybe for listeners. What was the job?
Okay, so corn detasseling. So I grew up in Iowa. So when so all corn, at least in America, is a hybrid corn. So they take two different. So they'll take like a short corn and a tall corn. So maybe the short corn has a better, more secure stalk, and the tall corn has better fruit, and they like cross them. I mean, I don't have a clue what I'm talking about as far as what the features are, right? Like but they'll cross them, so they'll have like one row of corn or two rows of corn that have tassels, and then we take the tassels off 6 rows or whatever in the middle, so that the you're doing cross pollination. So the pollen from one corn is hitting the um, at the end of corn. You have the little whatever you call that, the stringy stuff coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the pollen's hitting that and then pollinating the corn, but it's creating a new seed that's not reproducible. That corn will not, if you plant it in the ground again, it won't actually make anything because of the hybrid feature. So they have to redo that every year to create corn that is more durable, to insects, etc. And it's basically just ongoing gene therapy.
Come for the corn education, stay for the business advice.
I had no
He
idea.
asked.
It sounds like yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
already
so
learning.
the follow up question we always like to ask then is like, what did you take then from that job, that experience, that maybe set you up for success in your future endeavors?
I mean, yeah, definitely the idea that I can work a lot harder than I think I can. Right? It's like a concept like going to the army and being in doing something that you think is impossible, like working 6 hours outside in the heat in the middle of the summer when it's 120-degree heat index. You wouldn't think you could do that. So I think I use that later in life, and when things get miserable and you need to push through it, then you can
Like
do it.
I'm a corn detasseler in my soul.
I
can
hate
do-
this less than what I once did.
Yeah, you can do hard things, I think is the
Yes,
the takeaway.
absolutely.
from
And
that.
everyone I've ever talked to that has done corn detasseling takes that away from it. If they've made it through the season, a lot of people quit. But if you make it
They're
through
not
the
like
season,
how can I become a master corn detasseler?
no,
That's never the
no,
life. No, that's never the
no,
goal.
that's not a thing.
We didn't talk about this. Kevin didn't mention it. It wasn't a job that I got paid for fully, but as a kid, I did stuff around the house. And the worst stuff that I ever did was things like doing laundry. And so as a mom, a lot of times that's like the expected role. And obviously we have 6 kids. So the first 3, I didn't have a lot of help, and laundry was always a pile. And so what I really love to do is help entrepreneurs realize like that is not a best fit for you. Doing those jobs, they might seem like you should do them, or you're lazy if you don't, or like it's your house, you should really maintain your own stuff. I am an advocate for hiring at all areas of your life. And one of the reasons is because as a kid, that was actually the worst job I ever did was laundry. And you can give me any other job, I'd pay to do it, but that one I had voices in my head and like, ugh, never ending.
For my
Not my
wife,
lane.
it's scrubbing the floors. She used to
Mhm.
try to go out, hang out with her friends, and her mom would be like, "Did you wash the floors?" So she will not touch our floors. That's a job for me, I guess, or for our
literally
kids.
anyone else.
For our kids when they get older, we'll traumatize them with the same thing.
Now,
Well, I was just gonna say you have 6 kids, which is like 1,000 kids. So
it
let
can
me-
feel like
I know, we talked off air, kind of like the sort of the angle we want to take with this episode, because you guys, instead of chasing this idea of success that this world defines as like, more revenue, growth, scaling, like making as much money as possible, it seems like you guys have sort of redefined success. So instead of chasing this type of success, you redefine success and then reorganize your life around this new idea of success. You sold everything and moved to Mexico. So like a lot has happened in your guys' lives. So can we like go back maybe to the beginning of this journey? So before the move, before before this business that you guys are in, your new endeavors, what did success mean to you? What was your original definition of success? And then like maybe what was the moment that you realized that it had to change?
Well, Jamie, you might be better on some of this because I don't really know entirely where to start. But for sure, this concept of belief crew, the word crew implies that there's more than just a couple of us, right? And so, in the very beginning, when we first dreamt up what we're doing, it was the concept of like detasseling, where there's a bunch of people working on something together that's impossible. So if you think about, and one of the areas that we focus on in our business today is like transitional times for entrepreneurs. Say that you're going from one business strategy to another one, or you just bought a new business and are merging it into another business, etc. And so that's one thing that we focus on is people that have some type of transition. Like I've had someone recently I talked to that we're working out a plan to work together, and she's tried retirement once and it drove her nuts, and so she wants to come up with something different, but she still wants to have more time. So we're working on creating a plan to help her do the things however it is, if we provide some of those services or we find someone else to do the things that she hates about it, like the people stuff is what she hates, and create a lifestyle like we did, where our lifestyle is aligned with this, the way that we want to live and the way we want to do business every day.
So I talk to people about this all the time. Like when I'm gonna use my own experience. When I'm 18 and Kevin and I are just meeting and we're talking about the life we want to have together, and I'm like, okay, how many kids do you want to have? We're sort of working off of the model that we're gonna retire at 62 unless you do things well financially. Maybe you're gonna retire early. And so, you know, we had these types of conversations. I'm a planner, and of course, I didn't plan for 6 until they were, it was we were being asked to have more. But I said 4, he said 3, and then it's like, okay, a house, a car, 2 cars, and we'll see where life takes us. And I think the problem that a lot of us have is we don't redefine that vision after we get to sort of this version of what we thought we were going to create or who we thought we were going to be. And so Kevin and I were at a point in our lives where we were like, okay, we're ready for more. We're ready for something else. And I was in the family business at the time. We had rental properties, and we had started an escape room business. And that was sort of the, side hustles, you could say, in addition to the family. And we had 7-bedroom house with 5 garages, like we had all the stuff. We were there for 40, I've lived in that central Wisconsin area for my entire life. And we just had all the root systems. We were part of the church system. Like we had family, all the things that we thought we wanted. I recreated my childhood, and it really wasn't enough, but I didn't understand it. I was ready to grow and lead and create at another level, but I didn't know that. And so instead, I just started creating problems around me. I started, Kevin and I had problems in our relationship, and I didn't feel connected. He had been an addict for a very long time. And so I was finally like, something has got to give, something has got to shift. And I want to feel energetically connected to my life partner. I want to feel like we're working towards something that's more than just kids and money in the bank. And we started to unpack that, but in like a really different way. We started doing coaching and healing at the same time because we wanted to heal from the addiction issues, and I wanted to become more of a leader or become a better, person. Like I was just trying to figure out, what do I not know? And I remember one of the things that we did was look at an Excel spreadsheet and try and figure out how can we 10x, like this concept of 10xing, like, whoa, from where we are, like even though
You
we're
just read a Grant Cardone book.
absolutely right. I just come back from 10x conference,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what is it that we're missing? And looking at an Excel spreadsheet and trying to take what we had done really, really well and what we thought things were going well, and like, how do you 10x this? Like, what in the world are we missing? And just to say, that didn't work for us. That model didn't work for us. And one of the books we read along the way was The Illusion of Money by Kyle Cease. And the idea just kind of shifted everything for me. And we were already sort of on that road of trusting ourselves, leaning in and listening. Like, what is it that we really feel called to, even if we don't understand it? And so I would say that was the initial part of the journey of just saying, like, where are we being called and we don't even understand it? And then saying yes. And so
how
that's
did
what happened.
I just want to know, I guess, you've got the initial idea and you've got all the connectedness, but you've got some discontent. And obviously it sounds like you guys clearly have processed through all those things to this point. What was it then that made you kind of pivot and say, well, you know what, we've figured a lot of this out and now we can begin kind of doing this for other people, and while also still kind of pioneering our own version of success?
Well, we at first, there's any type of like coaching or helping other people business, there's some phases where usually almost everyone that I talk to, because we do some mentoring in that space, and we think after we've gone through something that we can go and help someone else, right? Like almost right away. And that's really not too true. So the first stage is getting to a place of recognizing how much work we personally have to do ourselves to be able to be in a place of helping someone else. Like basically, what it really takes to be successful in any self people services business is a commitment to doing that same work yourself in perpetuity, right? Because if I'm not committed to continuing the work, then my skill set is lessened. It'd be like if I'm a contractor and I never up my license or any of my training, right? Like I'm just outdated. So so the first stage is getting through that recognition of what type of commitment it takes to succeed, because there's a lot of coaches out there, and there's probably only, or people in that space, and there's probably only 3% that make money, so you have to make that commitment and not necessarily niche, but really figure out who you are. And that was my struggle, was figuring out, who am I, what is my calling, and how does our calling together fit, right? Like Jamie has a calling, I have a calling. How do we make those work together?
Do you care to maybe unpack that a little bit more? Because Steve and I have talked about like the ideal audience member who's listening in, and I think it's probably someone who's in that journey of self-discovery, in figuring out what they want to do, how they want to launch their business, who they want to become. Granted, I'm sure there's some people listening who have their own businesses and are looking to kind of sharpen the sword to get better. But for those people that are kind of maybe lost in limbo, you already mentioned a history of addiction, and we don't have to get too far into that if you don't want to, but just kind of the things that you worked through that you were then able to roll into your own business and then into your coaching of other people looking to grow themselves.
Yeah. Well, I kind of think there's different phases in life, and maybe we're talking about some of the later phases, but I think a lot of us spend like our 20s, like Jamie said, going after what we believe is our dream. And part of what we're doing from an energetic standpoint is we're building our systems, right? And we're testing things out. And then in our 30s we start to reflect on that, right? Like it's just a natural thing, like we're going through. And if we, like Jamie said, if we don't shift our vision, then we're going to be not, our fulfillment is going to drop. And that's where the midlife crisis comes in, right? Now, there's one other thing that's happening there in your late 30s into your 40s where there's some energetic changes. Like we know how our physical body matures, but our energetic body actually shifts in your late 30s and through your 40s into your early 50s. So what happens is we're a little more connected to some of the let's say, I don't know what the epigenetic, let's say, some of the epigenetic energy that's there for our ancestors, it comes in that middle age side of things. So I won't go too deep into that, but just the concept that we have new challenges during that time, and there's a shift to wanting, usually most of us are wanting to shift to more spiritual needs. Like Tony Robbins talks about 6 basic human needs. We have like the whole certainty, uncertainty, that kind of thing. And then there's a couple other ones. And then there's some spiritual needs inside of those 6, growth and contribution. So when we hit middle age, we usually want, deep down underneath all the things in our head, we usually want to add a little bit more to this growth and contribution side. Now, the issue is for young people today is they actually want to start out there because they're already spiritual and they already want that, right? So that's why the message that we have in a lot of our clients are a little older because they're ready for this. But I think our younger, like our kids and younger kids today, they want to do this at the beginning.
Yeah, I had what I call a 30 life crisis where I bought an electric scooter. Like you go downtown somewhere and they've got those electric, you buy it through Lyft or Uber or whoever, Lime, I think is the company. And
I haven't even heard
riding
this story,
around
so I'm
town.
thrilled to hear this.
Yeah, I turned 30 and my wife and I both sort of had this crisis of like, she watched Emily in Paris, which was her, that was her thing, like that was the downfall of her.
Okay, and yours was a scooter. Go on.
Mine was we went to Nashville and rode on this scooter, and I was like, I gotta like I think we both felt like we had lived by the book for the first 8 years of our marriage, of our lives. We had saved all this money, paid off all our debt, done everything right, built a really good like foundation, had a nest egg, all this stuff. And then we were like, man, we didn't adventure like at all. We didn't do anything fun. So I like wanted to buy this scooter. She wanted to sell everything and move to Paris. We were just like, what have we done with our lives? And it's funny because I feel like other people that are like in their 30s or 40s, maybe people our age, even like our friends are like, man, I wish I would have been more serious and less fun. And now life is so much harder. Whereas like we did it right, and we wish we could have done it, the more fun way.
Party a
Just
little
feel
more.
like, yeah. I just feel like you can never have it all, and there's always like the grass is always greener on the other side.
It's
Yeah.
greener where you water it, even if it looks like a scooter, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a little bit of like maybe some of the subtext of what we're talking about today is if you go visit your retired grandparents, are they happy if they've saved all their money, if they have the house they want, and everything that we're being sold that we want? Are they happy? I mean, even the happy ones, they're still missing something. Even the really healthy ones, like Jamie's grandparents, are awesome. I love to be around them, but they don't have any challenge in life, and that doesn't create health, right? Is no. So, and especially for entrepreneurs don't retire until they're like 84. So why would we ever listen to any financial advice that is that you should defer all of your fun and everything that you want to do in life until the end? That's not, when you're an entrepreneur, you've basically said no to all that garbage. You're saying, hey, I'm going to
Yeah.
create a lifestyle, right? And
Yeah,
so,
you're not relying on someone that's taking 2% of your holdings every year.
yeah. And also, like, if we're looking about, like, think about the big mentors that we want to be like that have lived over the entirety of history, and then look at their lifestyle. Did they live like Americans? Did they like save? Did they take their investment income and put it aside and never touch it? And they somehow got to this nirvana place later in life. I don't know. I just feel like there's something wrong with the what we're being sold, and why are we buying into that? And like there's a little bit of anger as I say this at myself, because I believed all this stuff. Like I did all that, and then I'm sitting there with a nice bank account after we sold our rentals and stuff, and it's like, well, I want to see that go up, and I don't want to take any risks, but I want to have my life changed. And then I have a bunch of people that like I said, we mentor people, and they come to us and they're like, well, I want big change in my life. I've done coaching, I've done healing. Everything should change. Well, they haven't changed anything else. They haven't changed their friends, their family. They haven't changed really anything in their life, and then they want a big change. So I guess the message for me that I learned is, if we really want to change, if we really want to connect to what we're doing, let's put everything on the table. Like, what's the risk?
Yeah, I think I love this conversation because this is something like my wife and I talk about. It's like, you're sitting on your deathbed. What are the regrets? What are the things you wish you would? And I think a full life, to me, the more, I've worked and kind of been around the block, the more it feels like it's like a life of memories. And so what do you want those memories to be? Do you want it to be, but see, well, before I get too far down that rabbit hole, I think the problem is we want, we want to go to Disney World and create these memories at Disney World. Well, we got to pay for Disney World. So I need to work a job that maybe I don't love so that I can fund the trip to Disney World. But that funding took a year out of my life at a job I don't care about, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, whatever. So it's this kind of push and pull of like, yes, I want these memories. I want a full life, and a full life is one full of memories. But to create the memories that I want to create, I have to do the things that I don't necessarily love, that I don't want to do. Maybe working for somebody else. It doesn't have to be working for somebody else. But like, what are your thoughts there with that tension between those two?
Well, go ahead, Jamie. But one word that pop out from what you said is have to. Right? You have to. Well, we get to eliminate those types of phrases, change them, because we don't have any have tos. We think we do. We gotta erase all the
death and taxes. Those are the have tos.
I mean, they're optional. You just got to be creative enough.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's tax fraud, but go on.
well, I'm saying you can live in a different country. You can find ways to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying like if your goal is to pay no taxes, that's probably not a good motivation. But if you want to figure out some lifestyle that has minimal taxes, that's possible, right? Or you can figure out where you put most of your money investments in such a thing that it will minimize your taxes. There's a lot of options there. But if we say have to, we just forfeited all our power.
I want you to clarify, especially if you mean something different than this, but the undercurrent that I feel like I'm picking up is that you challenge a lot of commonly held preconceived notions of like, well, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do things the way that everybody else does them. You don't have to do things the way that society says. And I guess a big part of what we're talking about with, entrepreneurship and talking to people who are kind of taking their own income into their own hands is, kind of forecasting your own destiny, if you will, what you're going to do next. And so it is cool to hear you guys talk about like how you're essentially helping people unpack that and parse through it maybe in a way that they never have before.
Yeah, I mean, I resisted. Like Jamie is a visionary here. She's the one that like came up with all this stuff. I was a major resistor to this, and that's kind of what you're hearing in my energy. Is like I was sitting there for 6 months getting rid of everything that I valued in life and wanted to and thought was what made me happy. And then down here for 18 months we've been renting we rent a nice home, but like um I've absolutely loved not having to take care of a big house, that and recognize how much time I was spending in my year to plan, to upgrade, to take care of it. And so yeah, I don't know if there's a way that we can start some of these conversations at a little higher level where we put more things on the table, and then I think we get a better result than if we're saying like we have to do everything and then we have this small window where we can change it, that we can change, then we've just limited all the results, right? So Jamie, I'll let you talk.
Well, I agree with everything you guys are saying, and I definitely I grew up with an entrepreneurial lifestyle where my parents lived and worked and it was all one. And so honestly, that's still what I thought I wanted. And I do believe that it's a very different lifestyle than the 9 to 5. I never had the 9 to 5. My parents, I didn't grow up that way, and I mean, the little bit I worked outside of having business or being a part of business has been so small. It's not worth saying that it was never a full time. Um, but what I saw happen in the family business, so I'm working in the family business with my dad, and he's constantly saying, things like, well, this is going to be yours next. And what we found is that this is normal in family businesses where they're also comparing themselves to what the financial advisors are saying. You want to retire at 62. So the closer they get to 60 and the more they're like checking in with their own life and comparing, am I doing okay? Do I have enough for retirement? All of a sudden they realize I don't want to give up what I have. I've created a business with a team around me doing what I love to do, and I don't want to be done. And so then the next generation, other people like me in their 40s that are thinking that they're going to be the ones taking over the business, find out that there is no succession plan because the dad or whoever was running the business doesn't have an identity outside of the business, doesn't want a life outside of the business. And then my dad literally said to me, he's like, I have the most amazing business. This is what I've always wanted. So in his mind, why is he going to turn this over to me? He's not excited to turn it over to me and do what? Golf? Like what he does for fun is the work in the business that it energizes him. And then he has a whole team of people that will literally do what he wants when he says to do it. And he can take off when he wants. So again, as business owners, if we're creating what is in alignment for us, we're not looking to retire from that. And so that's what Kevin and I really leaned into for us. What is it that we're called to do for the rest of our lives? Like imagine that you're a billionaire. How are you called to serve in the world? And what are your gifts and talents unique to you? And Kevin and I together, our together combined gift is unity, creating unity. So when we go into relationship situations where we have life and business partners that aren't on the same page, aren't sure what their life is going to be like, we just bring this unity just by existing. We don't even understand why it's there. It's just who we are. It's our natural gift. And we love to do it. We love to serve in that way. So for us, we're doing, like, I'm not meant to feed the homeless. I'm meant to help people embrace entrepreneurship and embrace their gifts for the rest of my life. That's just what I'm doing now.
So within that, I mean, obviously that's kind of probably a dawning realization that took place over a period of time.
Took a little
What was it?
time.
Yeah. What was it that then made you say, all right, well, not only do I love doing this, but I feel like we can make a living off of it. And, you found a business and then you launch into that. Like, what was that process like? Because it sounds like a lot of what we've talked about to this point is the realizations that you made both about yourselves and about your perspective on life, and then how that then kind of evolved into what has become a business and coaching adventure and venture. And I think that it would be a little reductive to call it coaching too, based on other things that you guys have talked about. So, just kind of how it turned into something that you could monetize and how it's evolved since.
Oh boy, there's
I'm gonna-
so much
I'm
to
gonna-
this story.
Yeah, I want to speak to this a little bit, and then I also want Kevin to really lean in here as well. So from my perspective, first of all, I have a lot of experience in business, in creating businesses, and bringing businesses to multiple, managing multiple seven-figure portfolios at the same time. So the idea of turning anything into a business does not scare me. However, as we started to do it, the reality was that it doesn't matter what the business. There's a couple of belief systems, you could say, that we run into, and it doesn't matter. My belief system could be different than Kevin's belief system, and we're both hitting a belief system about our own value, about our worthiness, about what we deserve. And we see this happen with business owners, no matter what age or how much they have. Like, it doesn't matter. It's about the belief. And like Kevin said to me at one point, he goes, I think the best thing that happened to us is when we burned the boats and went all in. Like, literally, there's nothing else on the table except for this, because then it's no longer about worthiness, right? It's like, we're going to do this. What do I have to do to make this happen? And so I come from a perspective of like, every business exists out there as an idea, as an opportunity. It can all be monetized. What I see happen is that when people try to do it themselves without bringing in the other people that they're called to work with, think about a marriage. 1 + 1 equals 3, right? Like, you bring a third person in, and you can create together, and you multiply. And so as business owners, if we're not bringing in other people and we're trying to just do this by ourselves in our own little, it doesn't work. And then the other side of it is holding high the vision through the doubts and fears, and believing long enough to just, I mean, honestly, it is a wild ride. And I've done multiple businesses at this point. It doesn't matter what the business is. The closer it is to our heart, the more we almost don't believe it's possible. And so the thing that you could almost say hate the most is when we go after the thing we think is the safe version, so that later we can do what we're meant to do or called to do, or what that big vision is, because there's something about it. We just don't think we can do this. Like, this would be too amazing. This would be too perfect. And so we work so hard to build something we don't actually want, so that later we can have something else. That's what I see happen the most.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. I mean, if you think about the people that have really created and defined our world today, every single one of them, they put everything on the line, right? They might have had $1 billion. Like, I remember Elon Musk talking about once where they were down to one more launch, and if they didn't figure it out, he had no money, right? So he risked every single thing that he had. Probably he had other things in different companies, but like for that company, it would have been dead. And ultimately, my experience, I don't have as much experience starting a business, and Jamie's more of an entrepreneur than I am. But like, as an entrepreneur, I think the way to succeed is to put everything um, like to burn the boat sooner, to put everything on the table sooner. And I know I resisted that, and that was what made it more painful. And another thing I want to say too, just full disclosure, like, our moms died like 20 years ago, and they both died of cancer within a year. And they both of them, over time, they left us some income that we then invested. And like, there was some background stuff in that we did rentals because of that help that they left us. And so, and then so there can be part of that story too, like, let's zoom out a little bit. Sometimes when we think about what we want to do in our entire life, we're often we're too focused into a 5-year thing, which you can create anything in 5 years, but it doesn't mean you're actually going to create something or have enough money to invest in it in such a way that, well, anyway, take all of my opinions away too. But like, how about we zoom out a little bit more? I like to zoom out a little bit more and think about what's possible and what would it take for me to create enough money to be able to invest in a business. I think if you're going to create a successful business, you've got to have some money, right? Like,
Okay, so Kevin, what I usually talk about is the idea of like in the real
she's going to
estate
challenge
world.
me here.
Mm-hmm.
You
In the
said
real
you
estate
said you
world,
have to have some money.
that's right. You don't have to have money. They say just use other people's money. And so there's this
Yeah, that's
idea
true.
that we have
Yep.
to have something to create something. And I haven't seen that to be true. I
Yeah.
think the idea
I love
is
how
we
you guys,
believe
how
in our
quickly
idea.
you transition there. Like you're already,
We're already in it. We're in it.
you're, yep, right.
But
Helping me back.
I don't know if this is a challenge, but a potential, just a thought that has come up in this is that like entrepreneurs are very logical, typically, and thinking about burning the boats is tough. And probably maybe it's 50-50 guests that come on here recommending burning the boats. Some of them say like you can build it, you can work a job and build your dreams at the same time. But like for the logical entrepreneur, you guys talk about alignment. I don't know if you've mentioned it during the interview, but pre-show we talked about this idea of alignment, which is more of like a feeling, I think, than like something you can see per se. So how do you know, maybe how do you coach others? How did you feel it yourself? How do you know that you're aligned with your calling or like what you're supposed to be doing? How do you convince yourself that like this is something worth burning the boats for?
Mm. This
Boy.
is a really big deal.
Yep.
And to be honest, I'll speak for myself, and again, interested in Kevin's version. This is actually one of my gifts, specifically to help people monetize their dreams or to see that it is possible to believe in it with them. I have in my design the ability to see things at their core and where things are either out of alignment or in alignment. But I do believe that the more we let go and shed other people's ideas and lean into believing and trusting ourselves, the more we can also feel, does this feel heavy? Does this feel lighter? And I don't even understand it. Going into that space of like, regardless if it makes sense to most of the world or on paper, how does this feel to me? And trusting your feelings. There's a lot of talk out there, like even in the logical space, about not doing something that's emotional. And I think I used to think that emotions were bad and feelings in my mind were kind of like in that emotional space. Like, don't be emotional about this. Let's just be logical. Let's look at the pros and cons. Let's look at our bank account. Let's look at the balance sheet. And I am really testing all of my personal fears and finding out that um, there is actually something to be said for trusting yourself in that process and getting to a place of clear energy where you can really trust yourself as an entrepreneur. Because again, for me, it's a gift to be able to see it in other people and support them. Like we just had a conversation with a client today who was talking about, I have to get a client. I have to follow up with, I need to get some bids. I need to do this and like lead generation. And I said, can we talk about something else? I actually see another opportunity here for you that he's also interested in. But when we get into that fear-based scarcity version, then we stop seeing the potential and what could be actually more in alignment for us. So that's what comes up for me. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, I feel like you guys are providing kind of a unique value proposition where it's like a whole person coaching more than it is just a business coaching, kind of as we had talked about, as Steve referenced, logical, raw numbers. Will it work? Will it not work? And, you kind of create a prison of your own design. And I think that you're not only helping people maybe, analyze the numbers, of course, and make wise decisions, but it's also like, well, how did you arrive at this conclusion that it couldn't work unless you did it this way?
Yeah. Yep.
Kind of
That's right.
reframing your entire mindset about what does it
100%.
mean, like kind of how we started this episode. What does it actually mean to be successful, and are you actually chasing the right definition of success? Real quick, can you kind of tell us, people that are interested in working with you or learning more about you, where can they find you? Maybe plug your social medias, your website, all that stuff.
Yeah, you can
Thank you.
find us on LinkedIn .com, like Believe Crew. Search for Believe Crew LLC or BelieveCrew.com. So those are probably, and actually I like our website because if you want to get a hold of us, the website actually, the contact thing actually works. It comes to our phones, and I think that's probably the easiest way to actually talk to us. And we do
You're telling
help.
me it's not a bot?
No, it comes like, it's not going to give you an immediate response, but it's going to pop up when we could send a response back. And that's just an easy way for people to reach us and cut through all the noise of email, etc.
Love it. Well, real quick, we've got sort of a new segment. This is the second episode, I think, that we're doing it. It's called "What in the World." So it's something interesting going on in the world right now. I want to get your take on. So Neuralink. I don't know if you've heard of Neuralink. Elon Musk's brain chip company. It's implanting chips in the brain so your thoughts can directly control a computer. So today, it's mostly being used for people with paralysis to control a computer with their thoughts. But the long-term goal is enhanced memory, faster learning, upgraded cognition. It's basically, I like to see it as like ChatGPT in your brain. Like you think a thought and ChatGPT gives it back, gives you the answer, and you're just like this enhanced superhuman. So the question is, there's this, I read an article, this Scale AI founder Alexander Wang, he's a billionaire founder, said he won't have kids until Neuralink is available because he believes that if a kid gets the chip early enough in their brain while their brain is still like developing, that they have an advantage even above other people that get the Neuralink because their brain, while it was figuring out how to become a brain, had Neuralink and had like a computer helping them. So he won't have kids until Neuralink is available. So I guess my question to you guys is, what's your take? What do you think? What does this mean for the future of humanity, of business, of relationships, of entrepreneurship? I know it's kind of like
You guys,
crazy.
You guys get to answer the questions that Steve asks me. He's like, "Hey, I saw this thing. What do you think?"
What are your
So
thoughts?
he's turned into a segment now.
Yeah.
I think have more kids is the answer, right? No.
Have more kids so that they can become supercomputers?
Either way, it's going to be have more kids. No. Well, so my take on a couple of things is that I don't want to be afraid of what's coming. There's a lot of sometimes fear about it. It's here, it's coming. Let's embrace it. Whether or not we run towards it is a different question. But the other side of it is, I believe that there's going to be a flip side. If this is what's happening in terms of technology and you can't keep up and there's so much changing and this is how much, then there's a flip side that we're really into, which is how much do I know myself? How much do I have clean energy in myself? Is my intuition good? Because I don't believe that we're going to be able to compete as computers anymore. I think we went from the industrial age to the information age, and now I think we're in the identity age. And so in addition to all of the questions about whether or not to have this computer and be more smart, I want to be more me. So that's really my perspective.
Yeah, I think you see this with billionaires. Like they're branding themselves. Like we already know them and they're doing branding. Why is that? Right? They realize that their identity is how they connect. And so if it helps with that, if it helps me with that, like if it could feed me certain things about how, you'd be a more empowered, more visible version of yourself if you'd step into that's your opportunity right now. I'm all for it. In the meantime, yeah, I'm more focused on, maximizing my own psyche and my capability, both my, both sides of me, right? Like the structure side of me and the intuition side of me. And I think if we're really honest as like entrepreneurs, we already use a lot of that. And so acknowledging that and letting it come out and be more aware of myself. And then Neuralink on top of that, after that probably is more my
It's like
priority.
the cherry on top. The other thing too that
Yeah.
we don't talk about too much is that we've been using our brains a lot. We've been thinking about things, and now we're moving into an age where it's going to be about our heart and how we feel and even our gut as another part of our brain. So like we're using so many parts of our body in the future that been relying on for information. So that's changing things too.
That's good stuff. I like that a whole lot more than the computers are taking over conspiracy theorists. So
I was 25
more-
years in tech.
Yeah.
I really, yeah. I mean, I'm not sold by. I've seen how many marketing plays there are, right? Like it's
Mhm.
gotta kind of be out there for 10 years and before I believe it, because like, yeah, I don't know, like tech. That's what we do in tech, right? It's like, oh, here's the big thing. So when I see my friend have glasses, that uses it for 5 years, then
Mhm.
I'll be the one that's like, okay, finally, I'll take this on because you told me how it worked for you, right? Like I'll let you
Yeah,
be the experiment.
you're not an early adapter. Imagine that.
No, not
a
anymore.
measured
No.
a measured take in today's day and age. What a novel concept. Well, we appreciate you guys jumping on with us today. We appreciate the fact that you guys are not just creating rational business owners and the people that you work with, but you're also, I feel like, creating empathetic ones. People who are becoming in touch with who they are so that they can execute and carry out their businesses to the fullness of what they will eventually become. So appreciate what you guys are doing. We appreciate you guys jumping on with us. We're excited to see what's to come for you, and we wish you nothing but continued success going forward.
Same to you guys. Thank you.